Hello, in this tutorial video I'm going to explain why I predict that Donald Trump will win the nomination for the Republican candidate for President of the United States on July 18 to 21 in Cleveland, Ohio. The Republican National Convention will meet to pick their candidate, and I am predicting that they will pick Donald Trump. I am making this prediction on January 31st, 2016, which is the day before the first primary election in the state of Iowa. So just before this really gets rolling, the voting starts, I'm making this prediction. Right now, Trump is leading the polls for the Republican Party, but in past elections, the person who was in the front leading the polls in January did not always win. Trump is controversial. His incendiary comments could at some point backfire. Nevertheless, I am predicting that he will win. And if I'm wrong, if he does not win, he's still going to gain a lot of support and attention after the election. His popularity is going to increase. This is going to be you might say a huge point in his life. Well, clearly it's a huge point in his life, but it will sustain after this and continue to increase his popularity and success throughout the end of his life. So that's my forecast. And I want to mention right off the start here that I am not doing this analysis from the point of view of who I want to win or what I think is best for America. I am just sharing with you my prediction based on the astrology. Very often people make forecasts of who will win, which also expresses their favorite. So this doesn't necessarily mean that Donald Trump is a favorite of mine, but regardless, I think he is going to win the nomination. I leaned a little bit towards expecting Ted Cruz would win before I did the astrological analysis. I hadn't really thought about it a whole lot. I've been very surprised by Trump's success, as many people have. He just keeps going and going, and the astrology indicates to me this is not going to end. He's going to win the nomination. I'm going to explain how I come up with this forecast using 4 steps, using the system of astrology that we call vibrational astrology. So I'll show you the 4 steps that I use for a comprehensive prediction. In another video, I talk about how my forecast that Bernie Sanders will win the Democratic nomination. I expect that to be very close, and Sanders, I think, is going to just barely beat out Hillary Clinton for the nomination. I'm not sure how close it will be in the case of the Republican Party, but it looks very strong that Trump will win. Although I don't have a birth time for Cruz, and I didn't compare to Cruz, and I don't have any great, huge confidence in these predictive methods. As I mentioned in the other video on Sanders versus Clinton, I'm presenting this as a learning tool for those who are interested in forecasting using vibrational astrology, and as a way to test their ideas, because always in astrology people, after the fact, give these great analyses of what happened. I think it's nice to put out the information very clearly beforehand so we can see if the ideas worked. And if they don't work, it gives us the ability to improve upon our theory. Okay, step 1. Step 1 in doing a forecast of this kind, especially in a presidential election, is to identify the major patterns in the birth chart that are relevant to the person's activities in politics. So before we jump right into a forecasting technique, first we look at the natal chart to see what planetary patterns are very strong. And we're especially interested in the lower harmonics patterns, because these are ones that can get activated in the forecasting. Harmonics 5 and 7 are not that important in American politics. From the research that I've done on presidents, they don't appear to be that important, and theoretically they don't seem that relevant. So it's harmonics 8, 11, 13, and 9 that are frequently important. And when we study Trump's chart, we see 3 patterns. One is in the 8th harmonic, and the other two are in the 11th harmonic. And I will show you these patterns. I'm in the Series 2.0 software. Here's Donald Trump's natal chart. We have AA accuracy for Trump. It's from a birth certificate or birth record. So this is great for astrology. We have a recorded time of birth as 10:54 a.m. And if we look at his 8th harmonic chart, even if you're not familiar with harmonic charts, they're similar to birth charts. And even if you don't know that much about astrology, you'll be able to follow the concept because they're geometric patterns. You see these red lines is a geometric pattern involving Jupiter, Pluto, and Mars. So Jupiter, Pluto, and Mars are connected together with fairly thick lines. None of them are extremely thin like this one. When they're thin, it means they're weak. So they're all very solidly connected. And the Jupiter and Pluto are opposition very strongly, very fundamental, strong aspect in the 8th harmonic. So he has a Jupiter-Pluto-Mars pattern. So that's really important. What does it mean? What it means, by the way, I've got a mistake here. It says Jupiter opposition Pluto trine sextile Mars. It's not trine sextile. It's a semi-square and sesquiquadrat. They're all hard aspects. This is called a sesquiquadrat and a semi-square. If you're not familiar with these technical details, don't worry about it. He's got a Jupiter-Pluto-Mars pattern. And what this means, Jupiter-Pluto-Mars, is success. You'll see this Jupiter-Pluto-Mars pattern in a lot of tremendously successful people, heads of very large companies, hugely successful people, big influence and power. They like to wheel and deal. And of course, that's a very obvious characteristic of Donald Trump. So we've identified a pattern that's important for him, not just for politics, but for any enterprise, and has a lot to do with when he's successful. If this Jupiter-Pluto-Mars pattern gets activated, leading up to this Republican National Convention in late July, Trump is likely to win because his power will come to the forefront. It highlights him as the big guy. And so whenever these patterns get activated, they're strengthened and lead to that being prominent. So as you might guess, one reason why I'm predicting why he's going to win is because it does get activated. So there it is. We identified it in the chart, and as we're going to see, it gets activated. Therefore, I forecast that he'll win. So this is just based on an astrological analysis, not on what I want to happen, not on what I wish would happen, not on what I think Donald Trump is. I don't use the astrology just to reinforce my personal opinions about things. I just analyze the pattern. That's what it says. That's what's going to happen. Pattern 2 is in the 11th harmonic chart. As I've mentioned in other videos, the 11th harmonic often is strong for presidents and other political leaders in the United States. And here again, it's tremendously strong. There are two patterns. And the strongest one, the strongest because it has 4 planets, is a Moon, Mars, Saturn, Pluto. There's Saturn, Mars, Pluto, and Moon. Spreads from 20 degrees to 24 degrees of Pisces and Virgo, all within 4 degrees. You see the lines are very thick. Very powerful pattern. And very, very, very different, you might say opposite, from what occurs in many of the recent presidents of the United States, where they have strong 9th harmonic, but with Jupiter-Neptune. No Jupiter, no Neptune, just the opposite. Instead of expansiveness and easygoingness and expecting American influence just to expand out and the people will just say, yes, I want to be free. Yes, I want to not have these restrictions. Yes, I want to wear Levi jeans or whatever else Americans do. Rather than having that optimism and feeling that this generous spirit will just spread around the world, there's a more skeptical feeling. And this is what this really means, this Moon, Mars, Saturn, Pluto. Mars, Saturn means get to work, do the dirty work. Saturn, Pluto means don't whine and complain. The Moon involved, Moon, Mars means be competitive, get active, get down to work. Don't whine and complain about little things. And 11th harmonic is impatient. So this is I'll give you an image of Moon, Mars, Saturn, Pluto. Watching somebody work on something, they're working on it very, very slowly and gradually doing it and talking while they're working. And you just say, what am I watching this guy? I'll just do it myself. So you just get in there, get it done. So this is the "you're fired," thing with Donald Trump, and his impatience and his distaste for what goes on in American politics. He's exactly the opposite. Let's get down to work and let's stop goofing around. Let's stop the government work, as we often say, to criticize that kind of approach. So there it is. That's Donald Trump. That's a big part of Donald Trump right there. If this gets activated, that gets even stronger. Now, if it gets activated with Jupiter, that would be nice, because that would expand it and strengthen it, but Jupiter makes it softer. If it gets activated with Saturn or Pluto, it gets stronger. I'm not sure if that's always good, because he's already criticizing people, calling them, you're low energy, and you're no good, and you don't know how to do things, and this is the pattern that's strong. I'd like to see it for the benefit of Donald Trump. If I was an advisor of him and supporter of him, I would like to see it get activated by Jupiter, maybe by Neptune. I'm not sure if I want it to get activated by Saturn and Pluto to make it even more extreme. And then the third pattern that Donald Trump has is the Sun, Venus, Jupiter, all within 2 degrees, very strong fat red lines. And that's his desire, because the 11th harmonic has a lot to do with desire, hungry. The 11th harmonic is hungry, wanting something, seeking fulfillment, impatient, and Venus, Jupiter is richness, wealth. Sun, Venus, Jupiter. So this is his, let's get wealthy now, let's make a better life now. What are we waiting around for? Let's make things richer and more beautiful, and get out of this poverty and this neglect and lack of resources. Let's pump things up now, and can't sit around waiting for it. He's an 11th harmonic person of action and impatience. So let's build wealth now. Let's find happiness now. Let's stop, waiting around. Let's get to work and build a richer, more prosperous world. So those are the things that are in Donald Trump's chart that are relevant to the election. That's step one. What is in the chart? Okay, step two is to look at outer planet Ptolemaic aspects. Ptolemaic aspects means the 5 major aspects: conjunction, opposition, square, trine, sextile. I've got typos. I have a lot of typos in my slides. Sorry, I do these things sometimes a little bit quickly and don't edit them carefully. Anyway, outer planet means Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. In major aspects, transit to natal. Conjunctions and oppositions in the composite chart between transit and natal, same phase angle, and midpoint to midpoint, transit to natal. So that's step 2. And so what we'll do here is, let's go back to Donald Trump's natal chart. I've got all these things selected already, so we can jump right into this. And here in the Series 2.0 software, I've selected what we call the timeline format. I'll right-click on this to show you what I've selected. I've selected transit to natal, and over here, Jupiter through Pluto, and over here with midpoints, composite, midpoint, same angle. You just select that. I started on January 2016. I ran it for 1 year, and there it is. And these are the really, really big, important things. And so we just look for long lines. Here's a long one. What is this? Pluto square Jupiter from mid-February to the end of June. Here's another one. Neptune Pluto equals Neptune Pluto. This means that the angle of Neptune and Pluto in the sky is the same as at birth for this whole time period. And notice this one, July 20th. That's right at the time of the Republican National Convention. So leading up, and we haven't really felt this, we're not going to feel this until mid-April. So this is going to be interesting, and I'm going to talk about what it means. So here's 2 big long lines. Here's another one, Uranus square Saturn, Saturn trine Pluto, etc. So there's a number of things going on. Let me talk about what it means. First of all, Pluto square Jupiter. That's this one here. Pluto, transiting Pluto, square natal Jupiter It's exact on April 6th, on April 29th. So this is coming up soon, and during about 5 months leading prior to the Republican National Convention. What does it mean? It's very good. It's very good because remember that Trump has Jupiter opposite Pluto in the 8th harmonic chart. The 8th harmonic chart is a chart that tells you about hard aspects. Hard aspects are conjunctions, opposition, square, semi-square, sesquiquadrat. They're harmonics 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. You start with 1 and then 2, and then you just double. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 16, 16 times 2 is 32. So there's this multiplying from 2. These are the driving forces. He has the Jupiter-Pluto combined with his Mars, and then Pluto squares his Jupiter. So when you get the same planets involved, his Jupiter-Pluto is being aspected by Pluto, is what's really going on here. So here's the Pluto square Jupiter here. So it's in orb to Jupiter, appears to not be in orb to Pluto, so we don't see it showing up. But there's the Pluto to Jupiter. So this is very, very strong, for especially for Trump, because Jupiter-Pluto is his power, his bigness in the world, his executive power and strength. And Pluto squaring is Jupiter. So his presidential strength, his entrepreneurship, his success is really highlighted even more than it was before. So this is great for Trump. He's the big guy. And it becomes more and more obvious, as if it's not obvious already. So and what we want to know is, can the candidate communicate this? Can they inspire others? Well, obviously, it's what he's all about, is being very successful. And he communicates and he inspires others. So this is why I think he's on his way to victory in terms of becoming the Republican candidate for president. Now, the Uranus opposite Jupiter over here in January and February. I'm making this video on the last day of January. So this is in effect now, gets stronger and very strong in mid-February. Is that good? Yes, because what we do in this forecasting is we look for transits of Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune. So that's one of the ones we want, Uranus. Transits of Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune to planets involved in the pattern. Again, it's to his Jupiter, which is one of his power planets. So what we're looking at here is things that are really relevant to what goes on with Donald Trump, and any hard aspect to his Jupiter, Pluto, or Mars is going to be good for him. More for him than for other people, because it's part of a power pattern for him. So he's got Uranus opposition Jupiter. That's very good during this time period. But it's only January and February, so it's not going to help that much in the long run. It's good right now, but it's not so great in the long run. But this Pluto square Jupiter is very important and very helpful. And this has more to do with why I think he's going to win the nomination, rather than Uranus opposite Jupiter, because once this is over, it's over. And he's still got March, April, May, June, and most of July. So he's going to have good energy, but he's got it here with the Pluto square Jupiter. Uranus square Saturn from June to September. This right here, now this is going to be exact a month before the convention where they pick the candidate. It's very, very strong leading up to it. It's going to be strong afterwards. If he wins the nomination, he's going to have to deal with this Uranus square Saturn in his campaigning for president after that. What does that mean? Well, Uranus-Saturn aspects are stressful, and issues related to bringing real freedom to the people are highlighted. And I predict that Trump's resistance to any gun control is going to hurt him especially during this time period. June, July, August, September, and especially in June, it's going to hurt him, because these are the kind of issues that come up with Uranus-Saturn, is how can we really be free? And one interpretation of it is, let people have their guns. Trump has said if people had guns in Paris during the attack, they would have shot these bad people. But his image that if the good guys have guns and the bad guys don't, and that'll take care of everything, that's going to be hard for a lot of people to swallow. That some reasonable gun control won't work. So he's going to have to make his case very well. He can't just get away with an image of, it's the Wild West. He's going to have to come up with some data or support or modify his position. It's going to be an issue for him, gun control during that time period. So issues of how people can really be free and not have one person's freedom hurt another person, very strong issues. So that's going to come up. I think it's going to create some problems for him. It'll also help him for people that agree with him, but it's going to be tricky. So this is not going to be smooth sailing. Not everything's going to go, swimmingly well right through this. But there's another reason why I think he's going to win the election, and that's this one. Continuing with step 2 here, which is this listing of these powerful things, and it's the Neptune-Pluto equals Neptune-Pluto. Now here's what we do. When we see same phase angle like this, a lot of times we want to know what is that Neptune-Pluto doing in Donald Trump's chart, because the Neptune-Pluto angle when he was born is repeated in the sky. So what does it mean? We can go to listings and then harmonic list grid and then harmonic aspect grid. And then we get this choices here. What's the highest harmonic? Well, 32 is plenty, because for this analysis we don't use extremely high harmonics. Orb for first harmonic by default is usually 16 degrees. It's fine. We're really interested in things with fairly smaller orbs, but that's okay. And we get this listing, and it's just lists every pair of planets, go all the way to the end to the Neptune-Pluto, and they are 2/13, and this is a strength, 0.66. They're also a 5/32, but a very weak strength of 0.10. We just want to know if it makes a strong aspect, and it's a very strong 2/13. And this bottom number tells us how strong it is. It's 0.66 strong, which is strong. Anything above about 0.3 is reasonably strong. Above 0.5 is very solid. It's a solid 2/13 aspect. The denominator is what we call the harmonic. So his Neptune and Pluto are in 13th harmonic. Neptune and Pluto in the sky move into the same exact 13th harmonic aspect, 2/13 aspect, the same exact angular distance that he has, and it activates his 13th harmonic Neptune-Pluto. Well, 13th harmonic gives inner strength and leadership ability and charisma. This is great for Trump. And Neptune-Pluto is very important for historical cycles. I talk about that also in some other videos. I have so many videos and so many different topics. But the Neptune-Pluto is influences people's vision and dream of what they want to see happen. So what's going on is that this angle from Pluto to Neptune at the time Trump was born is repeated exactly the same. Let's bring up this forecast again. There it is. Neptune-Pluto equals Neptune-Pluto. May, June, July, and exact on July 20th, exactly when the convention is. And continues and is exact again. They're like stationary. The distance between them is about the same, and they just stay there at the same distance that they were at when Trump was born through July and August. His charisma is huge. That's why I say if I'm wrong and he doesn't win, he becomes even a bigger superstar. His charisma and influence, I don't know if they're going to make a movie about him if he loses or what's going to happen, but he's going to be in that kind of rock star position, and being exact right at the conference, he won't go down, in a bitter disappointment. That won't happen. There's going to be some kind of wave of support for him at that time. Very, very powerful. So worst case is that he does not get the nomination, but he's still a superstar. So this is another reason why I think he's going to win, because of this Neptune-Pluto pattern. Again, I did not have these ideas before I did the analysis. I'm letting the astrology tell me what's going to happen. Okay. Third thing we do is to see if the major patterns are activated. So we notice that he has a Jupiter-Pluto in his natal chart, in his natal 8th harmonic chart. Going back to his 8th harmonic, he's got this Jupiter-Pluto-Mars. So what we do, I'm going to go back to his natal chart, and we'll go back to the forecast, and I'm going to right-click, which will bring up my settings, and I set up for Donald Trump right here. I gave it a label before I made this video to prepare for the video. I made a forecast to see if his 8th harmonic gets activated, and I called it D Trump 8th harmonic. I'll go to the customize and show you what I did. I want to know if his Mars, Jupiter, and Pluto get activated. Always by Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune. They're always good. And then I add any outer planet that's also in the pattern. Pluto is one of the planets, so I include Pluto as a transit. Because same planet to same planet is very powerful. So because Pluto is one of the natal planets in this Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, I will include Pluto with the transit. So always Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and then you can include Saturn and Pluto if they're in the pattern. Pluto's in the pattern, Saturn is not, so I add Pluto. So I'm going to look at Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto to his three. Remember, Mars, Jupiter, Pluto are the three in his 8th harmonic. And then I always include conjunction, opposition, square, just to see those. And then I'm going to include 8, 16, 32. These are octave harmonics. They're hard aspects based on the 8. We take 8, 8 times 2, and 8 times 2 times 2, or 8 times 4. And I make the orb smaller. I'm at half a degree for the very high harmonics. So that's what we do. I'll click OK to see this. And again, we see the Pluto square Jupiter that we already saw. But now, look what else we notice. Jupiter comes in late April, mid to late April, and then in this May-June period. This is unbelievable. April and May are, in addition to having the Pluto square Jupiter, and Jupiter aspects Mars and Pluto, so April and May, he is really big. He is getting endorsements from other billionaires and powerful people in mid to late April and in late May into the early June. A lot of endorsements from very powerful people. He's having a lot of success and influence and power. Very strong in late April, and then again in late May. So this further reinforces my sense that he's going very, very strong. Okay, second thing I looked at was his 11th harmonic pattern. We want to see if that gets activated. His Moon, Mars, Saturn, Uranus. Now, again, I mentioned I'm a little bit concerned about this getting too activated. If it gets activated by Saturn and Pluto, he may start really criticizing people even more. And I think this can hurt him a lot, where he says, this guy's low energy, this person's incompetent. A little bit of this is okay, but he can get carried away. So let's right-click, and I've got here Donald Trump 11th harmonic, D Trump 11th harmonic, where I set this up. I'll show you. I'll right-click, I'll go to Customize. I've selected always Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune. I've included Saturn and Pluto as well, because Saturn and Pluto, Moon, Mars, Saturn. Let's see, Moon, Mars, Saturn, Pluto. Looks like I didn't have that selected right. In his 11th harmonic, he has Moon, Mars, Saturn, Pluto. So I'm going to include Saturn and Pluto. And then aspects 11, 22, 44. So I want to see the 11-based harmonics of Jupiter, Uranus, and Pluto to his Moon, Mars, Saturn, and Pluto. Because Saturn and Pluto are involved, I'm going to include those in the transits as well. Because same planet to same planet is powerful. And what we'll see is not a whole lot of activation. We don't see any big, long lines. That might be okay. The biggest thing we see is Uranus square Saturn. I already talked about that. I think gun control and stuff like that, really tricky issues. He's got to think through that and get a good message if in order to win. I think he's going to win anyway. But So not a whole lot going on. He does have some things going on right at the time of the convention in late July. They'll be exact around the 20th to 23rd. They'll be within orb, and then they're exact just after the conference. So that's going to give him a little power at the conference. So maybe this is okay that it's not activated. And that's part of the trick of forecasting. There is no simple formula to just say this is good and this is bad. You have to think about what is driving the person, motivating them. I think that Trump is already so clear and it's a little abrasive, his pushiness. This might be okay. It would be even better if you had Jupiter, slowing down and activating this for a long time. Actually, he does have a nice Jupiter thing here, activating through the month of May. Doesn't become exact, but it gets within orb. So May is good for him. Look how aggressive he is in late January. He refused to be in the debate. I think it was January 28th, just when all this was going on. He gets very intense at these times. So anyway, that's what's going on there. No huge support, but nothing getting him in huge trouble either with that. And let's see, the last pattern is at Sun, Venus, Jupiter. Remember I showed you the Sun, Venus, Jupiter is 11th harmonic? And we'll see if transiting Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune, I've got a typo here, transiting Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune are the ones we want to his Sun, Venus, Jupiter. Let me show you that. I've got Donald Trump, 11th harmonic, Sun, Venus, Jupiter. So if we look at it, I've got it selected correctly. It was just a typo in my PowerPoint slide. Transiting Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune. Those are the three good ones that really help to his Sun, Venus, and Jupiter. And in harmonics 11, 22, 44 with smaller orbs for the higher harmonics. So you just make those selections. Oh, let me show you something else. I went over here to Appearance and I changed the name of it here, the third menu prompt, so that I could see what I selected, and that's why it says this here. Anyway, beautiful features of this software. And his Sun, Venus, Jupiter is very active in January, February, and this is part of his wealth and his association with other wealthy people. Very strong in February. I don't know if this is the most important thing for him in his presidential candidacy, but in early to mid-April and then around mid-June, he gets a lot of support from other wealthy people. His investments do well, things like that. So, and he has that now in late January and into February. And that happened with he opted out of the debate on January 28th, and he had a program to raise money for veterans and was kind of showing off all of his other wealthy friends who were donating. And that's the kind of thing that happens when that gets activated, which will continue in mid-February. In mid-February, he'll get endorsements and participation of very wealthy people, and he'll have programs that he'll be announcing or speaking about increasing wealth and prosperity. Okay, so that's the main things going on. Now, the next step in the forecast, fourth and last step, is to look at the secondary progressed to natal, the progressed to progressed, and solar arc to natal. And I look at 9 aspects. The 5 Ptolemaic, that's conjunction, opposition, square, trine, sextile. Also, I include the quincunx, the semisextile, the semi-square, and sesquiquadrat. So these are popularly used aspects. For solar arc directions, I mainly just want conjunctions and oppositions. But for secondary progressed and secondary progressed to progressed, you can look at all these aspects. And if anything really outstanding shows up, that's going to influence. So I don't mention all of these steps in some of my other videos. I have a video on Sanders versus Clinton in their race for nomination in the Democratic Party. I didn't go into as much detail as I'm going into here for Donald Trump. So this is a more complete and thorough presentation of these forecasting methods. So let's look at it. Well, what we do here is we right-click on the timeline format, unselect transit to natal, select progress to natal, select progress to progressed, and down here select solar arc, progress to natal. And if you look at the settings, when I highlight one of these, I've got my settings. If you look at the settings, it'll show all the transiting, all the progressed planets and natal planets, and there are the aspects that are selected: conjunction, opposition, square, trine, sextile, quincunx, semi-sextile, semi-square, and sesquiquadrat. And you'll see the same thing for all of these. So here is our progressed to progressed, and if we go to the customize, you'll see I've got the same thing. All the planets selected for progressions and the same aspects. And you'll see the same thing for solar arc, although for solar arc I'm mainly just interested in conjunctions and oppositions, but I leave those in there anyway. And I can, in another video, if I haven't discussed it already, I can discuss the theory of why it's especially conjunctions and oppositions in solar arc, but all the aspects in these methods. And let's see if anything shows up. So we select this. Here's the progressed to natal. This is 2016. 2016. That's what I'm doing. Okay. So what do we see here? We see a bunch of different things going on. Mars square Mercury. I've got options set on here to show me the positions in this particular one. What the transiting and natal positions are. So there's just a few long-lasting things. I can look at them. But the one that catches my attention is the progressed Sun conjunct the natal ascendant on July 23rd. This gave me goosebumps. When I looked at it, I went, what? Because the progressed Sun is the most important. We scroll down here. Here's the progressed to progressed. Some different things. Progressed Sun and the solar arc Sun are the same thing, so it's repeated here again, July 23rd. The progressed Sun is conjunct to Sun right at the time of the Republican National Convention. Holy moly! This means you shine, you become special. Something. It's like the birthday of your life happens. So, if Trump falls apart, if he says something really stupid that he can't get away with, or something goes terribly wrong, I can't always see physical problems, by the way. So, if a physical problem happens, that wouldn't, in my opinion, wouldn't show that my forecasting doesn't work. But barring something like that, of his own volition and his own behavior and the response of the people, if he goes downhill, then this whole forecast is just dead wrong, and we've got to rethink how we forecast. We've got a lot of strong evidence that vibrational astrology really works for natal incompatibility, and also some for forecasting. But if this doesn't work, we've really puts into doubt a lot of our ideas, because he's got so many things going on. The progressed Sun to natal ascendant. So if progressions work, secondary progressions work, and his time is anywhere near being correct, somewhere in this year, he should be having, maybe it's not July 23rd, because the ascendant is very dependent on the birth time. So if he's born 4 minutes different from what's recorded, that would send us off at a year. So that might explain it. But there'd have to be some reason, because this would indicate he comes into full expression at this time. So, assuming his birth time is correct, and that is an assumption, because humans don't always write down times correctly on whatever, who knows, but this would be another indication that he will win, and if he doesn't win, he still ends up being a star. So that's my forecast. Again, I trust the astrology more than I trust my own intuition and my own beliefs and my own hopes. That's what the astrology says, is that Trump comes out really, really strong. and he'll probably win. So that's it, my friends. This is what I've tried to do here is show you how we forecast using vibrational astrology, and also to test the ideas. So we'll find out in late July how well this forecast goes. One thing about it is that if it comes out correct, and you're very skeptical of astrology, very cynical, or even cynical of it, you might say, well, he was the front runner, no big deal, no big proof. But if it comes out wrong, then there's a problem. So you might say it's easier to be disproven than to be proven, because if it comes out right, well, then you could say we expected it to happen anyway. It might not seem that impressive. But if it comes out wrong, then we need to rethink, and I'll make another video on the rethinking of this. What went wrong? What's maybe secondary progressions are not that important. Maybe the birth time's not right. Maybe the Neptune-Pluto wasn't interpreted quite correctly. Maybe something else is missing. But this is how we can refine our formulas. Too often in astrology, we just make statements. There's no accountability, no going back, no questioning, no careful testing. So that's part of the reason for making this video, and the other is to learn how we forecast using vibrational astrology. Well, thank you very much for listening. Here is a link to the Cosmic Patterns software website that makes the Series 2.0 software. I'm one of the contributors and developers of the software. So obviously I'm biased because I'm one of the developers, but I just think this software is incredible. The things you can do and see and visualize, unbelievable. And we have a team of people working for decades to make this happen. Also, here's the link to the full YouTube page, YouTube channel page. Also, if you go to the Cosmic Patterns website and you go to articles and videos at the top, you'll see a menu item for videos, and that gives you a nice index into all these videos, because I now have over 200 of them. It's a nicer way to find all the videos. And here's some other astrology websites that I'm involved with: our school, our online chart service, our other software company. We have 2 software companies that are working together, and another website that provides us astrology services. Thank you very much for listening, my friends. God bless. Namaste.